From Silicon Valley darlings to indictment by a federal grand jury, in this video we look at what really went on with Theranos. Number 9. Silicon Valley darling. As the founder and head of the medical startup known as Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes received much praise and publicity for her development of what many thought to be a revolutionary breakthrough. Her hunger for success in the medical field was spurred by the influence of her great-grandfather, Dr. Christian Rasmus Holmes, known for establishing the University of Cincinnati's medical school and the Cincinnati General Hospital. But her innovative vision came from her summer internship with the Genome Institute of Singapore, bringing back ideas for her infamous product that were subsequently rejected by her professor, leading to her decision to venture out into the private sector. Within a year of dropping out of Stanford University, Holmes wasn't even old enough to drink when she raised almost $6 million for her company, named Real-Time Cures at the time. Number 8. The business model. The concept behind what Theranos was trying to accomplish was fairly simple: provide a safe, simple, effective, and fast means to test blood for harmful pathogens without requiring lengthy doctor's visits and costly appointments. Holmes and Theranos envisioned a process of testing in which patients would be able to circumvent doctor's approval, go straight to their labs, receive a single, small prick to elicit a droplet-sized sample, then receive test results within hours. Compared to the current process, which requires multiple vials of syringe-based extraction and days of waiting for a response, this promise for Theranos could have potentially changed the health industry forever. Many illnesses and afflictions can be caught early, but many Americans, and people worldwide for that matter, lack the funds, availability, and time to get their blood checked regularly. As a result, the corporation attracted a ton of investors. Hoping to get into a world-changing business on the ground floor, Theranos quickly raised capital, netting $700 million from investors by 2013. But the effectiveness and process of the supposed test alternative was never made transparent, and worries began to fester. As the response from Holmes were, more often than not, vague, investors into the company would eventually begin, but not before Holmes had already convinced many politicians, investors, and much of the public that her vision was close to fruition. Number 7. Supposed science. One of the main selling points of Theranos came from the purported use of Edison technology in its tests. Holmes named the experimental machines after the famous American inventor Thomas Edison, who once said, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Drawing on this concept, Holmes stated, "We codenamed our product the Edison because we assumed we'd have to fail 10,000 times to get it to work the 10,000th and first." And we did. The idea was that these machines being developed by the corporation would be able to search for numerous health indicators like medication and hormone levels or even cancer signs. These immunoassays, as they're known, were groundbreaking in that they could supposedly scan for so much information at once, operate off of such a small sample, and report back results immediately in comparison with other blood test tech. At one point, while the company was flourishing, Theranos offered a menu of sorts to interested customers, boasting 240 different possible tests. Despite all these amazing capabilities and functions, the Edison machines received widespread criticism. Their effectiveness and accuracy had not been peer-reviewed, and while Theranos would repeatedly claim they had data on record to back their claims, but failed to produce anything of substance, leading third parties to eventually perform their own trials. Number 6. Suspicious claims. Investors, politicians, and even the public can be fairly easily convinced with enough charisma, persuasiveness, and conviction. But when it comes to science, cold hard data reigns supreme. As Holmes continuously rolled out new information, features, and claims regarding Theranos and their Edison technology, medical experts and scientists worldwide were eager to learn their secret. Some researchers at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai decided to test Theranos tests themselves. Using a sample of 60 patients, the researchers compared the data found from Theranos tests to that gathered from rival blood testers like the Laboratory Corporation of America and Quest Diagnostics, and the discrepancies they found were significant. Cholesterol readings from Theranos were always 5 to 10 points lower than what their competitors reported. Of all the information analyzed, the Mount Sinai researchers found that the Edison machine tests were 12.5% more likely to be incapable of evaluating the sample, and 60% more likely to yield values that were either too high or too low. Theranos attempted to blame the study's collection process for the difference in results, however chose not to reveal their own supposed studies to support as much. All things considered, what Holmes and her company claimed to be capable of simply wasn't possible without a huge missing piece of the puzzle, the likes of which Theranos often referred to, yet failed to ever produce. Number 5. Journalist investigation. In early 2015, Wall Street Journal reporter John Carreyrou received a tip concerning Theranos and their unverified medical claims. Carreyrou learned from an unnamed former lab director of the corporation that Theranos had been performing unethical and harmful practices. The company had been generating unreliable and outright false results for their patients thus far, and realistically were operating at limited capacity. He learned Theranos was even considering HIV testing despite their lack of consistent results, an idea that was shelved at the suggestion of this source. Holmes and COO President Ramesh Balwani didn't seem concerned with the lack of accuracy in their product, as they continued to push their market, seemingly more concerned with patents and dominating the market. Holmes had already fired one CFO for questioning the company's reliability and honesty back in 2006, and in 2007, Theranos sued 3 former employees, accusing them of intellectual property theft. In 2013, she and Helwani pushed through with a new mini-lab product to be sold in stores, ignoring the pleas of scientists within the company warning of its incompletion. So while Carreyrou continued his investigation, Theranos went about business as usual, focusing instead on their first FDA approval. They celebrated this milestone with a party at their headquarters, featuring a bouncy house, beer pong, and a live dance performance by Holmes to MC Hammer's "You Can't Touch This," all as Carreyrou prepared to drop the curtain. Number 4. Hype machine. Part of what makes Theranos' transgression so egregious is just how popular the would-be medical advancement grew to become. After all, Holmes and her team were proposing a means for reshaping a multi-trillion-dollar industry with their services. It wasn't hard after that to attract attention. Though given the difference between what Theranos offered and what they promised, the amount of people that bought into their farce proved surprisingly large. A lot of that came from a sudden exposure boom they received in 2014. First breaking out into the mainstream with Fortune magazine, Theranos made the cover story, a feature which built up Holmes to be the next big name out of Silicon Valley. The months following saw the Blood Test Corporation appear in Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, Time, Glamour, Forbes, and other publications, while being seen on channels like CNBC and CNN. To assist with the portrayal of the company and confidence it projected, Holmes notably employed a Steve Jobs-esque attire, black turtleneck and all. She is also rumored to have deepened her voice to a more baritone sound to instill assertiveness, though the evidence of such is debatable and reserved to theorists online. Whatever tactics were employed, it worked, as Theranos made deals with Capital Blue Cross, the Cleveland Clinic, Safeway, and Walgreens, setting up their testing centers for public use. Number 3. Muddled answers. As reporter John Carreyrou's article made waves in October of 2015, Holmes found herself on the defensive. She quickly made appearances to refute the journalist's claims, though her responses failed to disprove the story. The night the report came out, Holmes said on CNBC's Mad Money with Jim Cramer, "This is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world." The very next day, though, the Wall Street Journal revealed the FDA had just recently shut down their use of nanotainers, the devices used for sending blood samples, as they were not cleared for medical use. Theranos would continue to offer rebuttals, going so far as to appear at the accusing publication's own technology conference, and yet still refused to produce data that could counter the report. The Wall Street Journal was soon joined by The New Yorker, Fortune, and the Financial Times, among other journals, to continue exposing further layers of deception. As truths concerning money raised, executive restructuring, and false partnerships leaked out, Theranos' partners began to drop, and the walls of the anticipated blood test company began crashing down. Number 2. Whistleblower scientist. Few were more instrumental in the downfall of Theranos than the disgruntled former employees of the medical upstart. While many found themselves at odds with the company's unethical business practices, one employee in particular had a hard time accepting the state of his employer, despite a personal connection to the higher-ups. Tyler Schultz joined Theranos' team in 2014 after, like most others, being drawn to Holmes' charm and apparent dedication to bettering the future. But after 8 months with the company, he quickly realized the company's dishonest operations went against everything they claimed to be, thus turned to his grandfather for assistance. George Shultz was a member of the company's board of supervisors and a former cabinet secretary under 3 different presidents, utilized for his knowledge of economics. But when Tyler brought his grandfather the news, George Shultz brushed it off, opting to instead side with Holmes. So with nowhere to go, he eventually turned to Carreyrou with the Wall Street Journal after resigning, despite the loss his grandfather was sure to endure. And with that sacrifice came first-hand experience of Holmes' dishonesty. Number 1. Situation to date. Since the truth behind Theranos was revealed, Elizabeth Holmes and Ramesh Balwani have been indicted by a federal grand jury with facing 9 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit fraud. The company itself has been in the process of dissolving since September 2018, with operations ceasing and employees being released by the end of August. The value of the corporation, which was once up to $10 billion, plummeted drastically in the aftermath of Theranos' fraudulent claims coming to light. This sent Holmes from being named by Forbes as the youngest self-made female billionaire to having a net worth of $0. Holmes and Balwani have pled not guilty and face a sentence of up to 20 years in jail. Their trial is scheduled for July of this year.